She was just 6 years old, playing in her neighborhood park. Then, without a trace, she was gone. For 15 years, her family lived with the nightmare of not knowing what happened to little Emily Grace. But the truth they uncovered will make you question everything you thought you knew about how far some people will go to hide their darkest secrets. It's going to shake you to your core. Prepare for a story that's not just about solving a case, it's about revealing the evil lurking in plain sight. Before I begin, tell me, where are you watching from and what time is it right now? Drop it in the comments below. It was a warm spring afternoon in 2006 when Emily Grace, a lively 6-year-old from Brooklyn, New York, asked her mother for permission to take a quick walk to the nearby park. She was known for her infectious laughter, for the way her bright eyes sparkled when she talked about her love for the local playground. It was just a short walk, just down the street from their apartment. How could anything go wrong? But that afternoon, something did. Emily left her house, her small figure disappearing into the warm sunlight, smiling as she waved goodbye to her mother, Jessica Grace. That would be the last time anyone would see Emily Grace alive. The camera follows Emily's small, playful footsteps on the cracked sidewalk, the sound of her shoes tapping against the concrete, echoing in the empty street. With each step, the camera lingers, capturing the innocence of her journey. She's almost at the park, the swings visible in the distance, the sound of children's laughter drifting through the air. But as the camera shifts, something feels off. The once bright sunlight begins to fade, casting long shadows over the playground. The swings start to sway on their own, creaking in the wind. A solitary bicycle left abandoned near the entrance. Emily isn't there. Her mother, Jessica, begins to feel that growing knot of unease in her stomach. Emily was never gone this long. Jessica quickly heads outside, calling Emily's name. Her voice echoes, unanswered. No one knows where Emily went. She checks the playground and nearby areas. Nothing. But what happened to her? Was it an accident? Or was something far worse lurking in the shadows? The sun is setting. The park is eerily quiet. And yet, Emily is nowhere to be found. Emily Grace disappeared without a trace, leaving her mother, her family, and her whole neighborhood in shock. The search for answers would shake everyone to their core. And for Jessica, the nightmare had only just begun. As we dive deeper into this case, there are lessons we can all learn. Lessons that could save a life, protect yourself and your loved ones. But you'll have to keep watching to uncover it. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. If you believe every child deserves to feel safe, hit subscribe right now. Let's make sure stories like Emily's get the attention they deserve. Only those who stand with justice will subscribe. The small Brooklyn neighborhood had never experienced anything like this. Emily Grace, a beloved 6-year-old, had vanished without a trace. The grief was palpable. Neighbors who had watched her grow up, who had seen her playing in the streets, could hardly believe that she was now gone. It was as if the sun had set too soon on the laughter that once filled the air. Everyone was talking, everyone knew Emily, but no one knew what had happened to her. As the days dragged on, the police seemed overwhelmed. Investigators combed through the streets, knocking on doors, speaking to anyone who might have seen something. But there were no answers. For Jessica, it was a nightmare she couldn't escape. Every night, after hours of searching and waiting, she set an empty plate on the dinner table just in case. Her heart ached each time she saw the empty seat across from her. It felt like a cruel reminder. The plate stayed full for hours. Emily never came home. And every time the doorbell rang, Jessica's heart skipped a beat. Was it her daughter? Would Emily finally walk through the door, smiling and laughing, her bright eyes lighting up the room as they always had? But day after day, the plate remained untouched. The silence was unbearable. The emptiness, deafening. Jessica couldn't stop the constant flood of questions. Had she missed something? Had she done something wrong? Was there a sign, a hint that could have told her that something was wrong? She replayed every moment, every interaction, trying to pinpoint when things had shifted, when Emily became a victim. But everything seemed to be in order. She began doubting herself. Was she a bad mother? How had this happened under her watch? At the same time, Paul, Emily's older brother, felt a quiet but constant burning rage. His sister, his baby sister, was out there, somewhere, and he couldn't just sit by and wait for answers to magically appear. Paul took matters into his own hands, relentlessly pushing the local police for answers. His frustration boiled over as weeks passed with no solid leads. "I know you're doing your best," he said one night, standing outside the station with his arms crossed. "But I need you to do more. We need answers. My sister's life depends on it." But the deeper Paul dug, the more he realized just how little anyone truly knew about what had happened. The police, though diligent, were overwhelmed. Time was slipping away, and no new clues surfaced. Jessica, meanwhile, couldn't shake the feeling that Emily's disappearance wasn't a random event. The silence in the house, the unanswered questions it all, weighed heavy on her heart. What if the answer was closer to home than anyone could have imagined? What if someone they trusted had been hiding the truth? Just as Jessica was beginning to lose hope, a breakthrough came in the form of a new tip. A strange detail, something small but significant, would soon send the investigation in a completely unexpected direction. The tip-off arrived one cold morning, a seemingly insignificant detail that no one had connected before. But was it enough to break the case open? Could this new lead provide the answers Jessica and her family had been desperately searching for? The discovery would shake the investigation and everyone involved forever. Like this video if you believe no family should ever have to endure the pain of losing a loved one without answers. Only those who support the truth will like it. The year was 2011. Emily had been missing for nearly 5 years. The investigation had stalled, and hope was beginning to fade. But sometimes, the smallest piece of information can shatter everything. Out of nowhere, a tip came in a stranger, someone who had never been involved in the case before. A woman who had been living in the neighborhood, someone who remembered Emily, remembered seeing a man acting strangely near the park the day she vanished. The witness described the man, his features, his mannerisms, but what was truly shocking was what she revealed next. Lauren Matthews, Emily's best friend's mother, was connected to this strange man. She had seen him too. But that wasn't the only twist. As the investigation dug deeper, it became clear that Lauren Matthews' husband, David Matthews, had an unsettling past, one that raised red flags. David Matthews wasn't just any normal, unsuspecting man from the community. He was involved in something much darker, something the neighbors never knew about. Detectives uncovered connections to past unsolved cases involving children, cases that had slipped through the cracks, overlooked by the community and local authorities. It seemed David Matthews had a history no one had ever connected to Emily's disappearance. But now, with the truth coming to light, everything was under suspicion. Was David Matthews the one who took Emily? It was a terrifying thought for Jessica. Someone she had trusted, someone her daughter had been around. Could he have been responsible for her disappearance? The more investigators looked into David Matthews' past, the more disturbing things were uncovered. Minor offenses, things that had never been fully investigated, came to light. These weren't just simple mistakes. These were warnings that no one had paid attention to. Jessica couldn't wrap her mind around it. The thought that someone, Lauren, a trusted friend, and David, her husband, might be involved in her daughter's disappearance was too much to bear. The family was in turmoil. How could they have missed it? How could they have allowed someone they thought they knew so well to hide their true nature so carefully? The trust they had placed in Lauren was shattered. How could she have let David around Emily? Had Emily known something was wrong but couldn't say anything? It was as if the ground beneath their feet was crumbling, and they had no choice but to keep falling. But Jessica wasn't ready to give up. She couldn't. Emily's disappearance had already taken so much from her. She had to know the truth, no matter how ugly it was. But could David Matthews really be the one responsible for Emily? Or was there something even darker lurking beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect family? The investigation continued, and every turn brought new, unsettling details. But it wasn't until a search of David Matthews' property uncovered something unexpected, something that no one could have predicted. David Matthews was linked to a much larger and more dangerous network, one that had been operating in the shadows for years. This wasn't just a case of a father figure gone wrong. It was something deeper. And as the puzzle pieces started to come together, Jessica realized that Emily's fate was even more horrifying than anyone could have imagined. What was this connection? What were the detectives about to uncover? The search for Emily was far from over. It was about to take a turn no one was ready for. Share this story because no one should live in the shadows of doubt. Let's make sure the truth is uncovered. If you believe in justice, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Years have passed since Emily's disappearance. Jessica, her mother, has had no answers, no peace, no closure. She wakes every morning with the same heavy weight, the same uncertainty, hoping that today will be the day they find something, anything that will bring her daughter back to her. But each passing day makes it harder to hold on to hope. The search slows, the investigation stalls. The Brooklyn neighborhood, once full of volunteers, now carries the familiar silence of a cold case. The police, overwhelmed by newer, more pressing cases, gradually set Emily's disappearance aside. Jessica watches helplessly as the case, once fresh and full of potential leads, fades into the archives of forgotten files. The detectives, once passionate about solving the case, move on to new investigations. The momentum is gone. The energy is gone. Emily's case becomes a statistic, a cold case on the shelf. But Jessica couldn't let it go. She couldn't move on. Every day, she wakes up with the same fight in her heart, knowing she's one day closer to the truth, but also one day further from the moment when her daughter went missing. She turns to the only thing left: social media, a place where the world's attention can still be gathered. She creates posts, shares pictures, writes messages to anyone who will listen. Her voice becomes a beacon in the darkness, a cry for help in a world that has stopped listening. But it's hard to fight against time. People's attention shifts. The public, once concerned and full of empathy, loses focus. Other tragedies, other cases, take precedence. And still, Jessica fights. She fights through the quiet. She fights through the whispers. She fights to keep Emily's story alive. She fights to make sure her daughter isn't just a name in a file, forgotten like so many others. But with every new year, every birthday that passes without Emily, the hope starts to fade. The fight begins to feel like a dream that's slipping through her fingers. Jessica continues living in the shadow of grief. It's a constant weight, pressing down on her every day, even when she tries to smile for the outside world. She holds on tightly to her daughter's memory. Emily's favorite toys sit untouched in her room, her clothes still hanging in the closet, waiting for the little girl who never came back. But time doesn't wait for grief. Paul, Emily's older brother, struggles too. He can't accept that the case might go unsolved. His desperation grows. Every night, he looks over the files, scours old pictures, reviews every single clue that the police had written off. Jessica and Paul both know they can't just wait around. The investigation has slowed, and if they don't do something, if they don't push for answers, Emily's story might become another cold case filed away with the others. They hire private investigators. They revisit every place that was once considered a lead. The frustration mounts. The doubts pile up. Paul spends countless hours going through old leads, looking for connections, trying to spot something that everyone else missed. His frustration with the police builds every day, knowing they've given up while he refuses to. Everywhere Jessica looks, there's emptiness. Every part of her life is touched by this unspeakable pain. And it doesn't help that people keep telling her to move on, to stop holding on to the past. But how can she move on when her daughter's fate is still a mystery? Her grief becomes her constant companion, a shadow that never leaves her side. And every time she's reminded that the case is cold, every time she sees another unsolved case on the news, it eats away at her hope. The police may have given up, but Jessica and Paul never did. What they didn't know, though, was that the case wasn't truly over. Could the next breakthrough be right under their noses? But as Jessica and Paul continue to fight through the silence, something unexpected happens. A new piece of forensic evidence resurfaces. It's something that had been overlooked before, a small clue that had slipped through the cracks. It's a breakthrough, something that could change everything. But just as quickly as it appears, the trail goes cold again. The police have no new leads. The community remains silent, and Jessica feels like the wind has been knocked out of her all over again. But what she doesn't know yet is that the truth is closer than anyone realizes. The search for Emily and for the person responsible for her disappearance is far from over. It's about to take a turn that no one could have predicted. And as for Jessica and Paul, their lives are about to be turned upside down once again. Now, as we move forward, there's something I want you to keep in mind. Early warning signs are crucial in preventing tragedies like this. If you've noticed anything unusual around you, don't ignore it. But don't worry, the full lesson is still coming, and I'll break it down for you in just a bit. Keep watching, because what you'll learn next could make all the difference. Comment below, I believe justice will prevail, if you're not siding with those who let this case go cold. I read and replied to every comment, so let's get the conversation started. In 2021, a decade after Emily Grace's disappearance, the case is reopened. Detective Olivia James, a seasoned investigator known for her persistence, steps in. She takes a fresh look at the evidence, looking for anything, no matter how small, that could push the investigation forward. Forensic technology has come a long way since Emily's disappearance. The DNA collected from Emily's abandoned shoes and bloodstains that had long gone cold are now tested with the latest techniques. Detective James orders a reanalysis, hoping that something new might come to light. And then there it is. A match. The DNA found on Emily's belongings doesn't just match an unknown person, it matches Gregory Holt, a name that Jessica and Paul have never heard before. Gregory Holt, a man who had been living quietly in the same area of Brooklyn where Emily had disappeared. He was in the park the very day she vanished. The discovery hits hard. Jessica can hardly believe it. Could this be the breakthrough they've been waiting for? Could the nightmare of not knowing finally come to an end? The DNA analysis confirms that Gregory Holt wasn't just someone passing through the area. His connection to Emily's case goes deeper, much deeper. He had been a convicted felon, someone with a criminal history tied to child abductions. But how had he slipped through the cracks for so long? His history wasn't just tied to minor offenses or petty crimes. No, Gregory Holt had served time for child abduction years earlier. How had the police missed him when investigating Emily's disappearance? How had they overlooked the fact that he was so close to the scene when Emily vanished? The pieces fall into place, just not the way anyone had hoped. For Jessica, this revelation stirs a storm of emotions. Hope rises once more, but it's tinged with fear. Could this man be the one who had taken her daughter? Could he finally be the key to solving everything? The thought that Gregory Holt might be the one to provide the answers they've been waiting for so long. The emotional toll on Jessica grows. She wants to believe this is the breakthrough they need, but there's a deep dread in her heart, an unsettling feeling that the worst might still be ahead. For Paul, it's no different. The frustration of the last 10 years of not knowing what happened to Emily has taken its toll. Now, with this new lead, he's desperate for answers. The idea that someone who had been in the area that day, someone with a criminal background, might be involved is hard to comprehend. But there is something else, something lurking beneath the surface. Gregory Holt's story doesn't add up. What is he hiding? Why had he never been considered a suspect before? As the investigation digs deeper into Gregory Holt, more troubling questions arise. The man who, on the surface, appeared to be an ordinary citizen, quiet, unassuming, has a past that connects him to other troubling incidents. But as investigators begin questioning Holt, something is off. He's not just refusing to talk, he's hiding something. What is it? The investigation into Gregory Holt and his connection to Emily's disappearance grows more complex. With every new question, it seems like there's a new answer, and yet, those answers just bring more doubt. Jessica begins to piece together fragments from the past. Could Gregory Holt be the one responsible for taking her daughter? It's not just his past. There's something else. Something darker. Could Gregory Holt be the breakthrough they needed? Or would the trail lead somewhere darker? Who is Gregory Holt? And what is he really hiding? What does he know about Emily's disappearance that he's not telling? As the investigation intensifies, new details about Gregory Holt come to light. But just when it seems like they're on the verge of the truth, an unexpected twist emerges. It's revealed that Holt has connections to a local organized crime syndicate, and those connections lead to more disappearances. Could Gregory Holt be just a small piece of something much larger? The clues point toward a disturbing network, a ring of criminals who've been operating under the radar, hiding in plain sight. Jessica's hope, once bright, now begins to flicker in uncertainty. The investigation into Gregory Holt is not the end, it's just the beginning. The search for Emily has just taken a terrifying new turn. And it's only a matter of time before the truth is exposed, whether Jessica is ready for it or not. If you believe that persistence and technology will bring justice, hit subscribe. Only those who stand for truth will hit that button. As the investigation continues, the pieces of Gregory Holt's life begin to unravel. It's not just his criminal history that connects him to Emily Grace's case. There's something much darker beneath the surface. The deeper the detectives dig, the more sinister the picture becomes. Gregory Holt, the quiet man in the neighborhood, has ties to a secretive and underground crime ring, a network that operates in the shadows, targeting young children for exploitation. Holt had been a small cog in a much larger, more dangerous operation, a hidden world that no one could have imagined existing so close to home. And it's all coming to light now. What was once a missing child case has now evolved into something far more disturbing. The very community that once felt safe where Emily played on warm afternoons is now shown to have a dark underbelly. Holt wasn't the only one involved. He was just a piece of the puzzle. Detective Olivia James and her team discovered that Gregory Holt had been operating under the radar, connected to several other unsolved disappearances in the region. This wasn't just about Emily. The investigation leads them to discover that other children had gone missing, some even long before Emily had vanished, without anyone ever connecting the dots. The realization sets in: Emily wasn't just a victim of an isolated act. She had become part of a much larger, systemic problem, and this system had been hiding in plain sight all along. With each new revelation, the case takes on a much darker tone. Gregory Holt's silence only adds to the confusion. He's been evasive, offering no clear answers, as though he knows more than he's willing to admit. His guilt becomes more apparent with every piece of evidence that ties him to the underground network. But was Gregory Holt the only one involved? Or was there someone else pulling the strings? As Detective James and her team investigate further, they uncover a trail of suspicious behavior that leads them to another level of horror. Holt's connection to the underground trafficking ring grows deeper, but it's clear that his involvement is just the tip of the iceberg. Every time they think they're close to unraveling the whole operation, more layers are revealed, sending the investigation spiraling into a vast and terrifying abyss. The operation Holt was involved in wasn't just about child abductions. It spanned multiple states, and the network it supported had been exploiting children for years. Emily Grace, the 6-year-old girl who once played on the swings in her neighborhood park, was just one victim of a much larger conspiracy. For Jessica Grace, the emotional toll of these discoveries is unbearable. The thought that Emily had been targeted by a much larger and more horrifying network fills her with dread. Every shred of hope she had, that Emily could still be alive, or that the case would be solved, fades away. But more than that, Jessica now questions everything she thought she knew about her daughter's disappearance. Could Emily have been caught in the crossfire of something bigger than anyone imagined? Jessica feels the weight of this new reality crushing her, as she realizes the terrifying truth about the forces that had been at play all these years. The realization hits like a wrecking ball. Emily wasn't just a missing child. She was one of many. And now, Jessica has to live with the knowledge that her daughter's disappearance was tied to a criminal underworld far beyond her comprehension. Jessica has always feared the worst, but now the worst has become reality. She spent years holding on to the hope that Emily would be found, that she would return home to the safe arms of her family. But the more Jessica hears about the underground ring, the more she wonders, what if Emily never stood a chance? The emotions she's grappling with, grief, guilt, disbelief, are unimaginable. Jessica begins to wonder if she could have prevented this somehow. She looks back at every moment in Emily's life, trying to figure out if there were any signs she missed. But Jessica knows, deep down, that Emily was just an innocent child, swept into something she could never have understood. She could have never known the danger she was in. And Paul, too, feels the weight of the truth. As much as he pushed for answers, As much as he believed the police could solve the case, the magnitude of what they're uncovering takes him by surprise. Paul now has to reconcile the man he thought he knew, Gregory Holt, with the monster he's becoming. The family's emotional wounds run deep, and with every passing moment, they realize that the world they once thought safe is anything but. As they uncover more, detectives realize this was no random act, it's part of something much larger, hidden under the town's nose. The deeper the investigation goes, the more horrifying the truth becomes. Could there be more victims like Emily? The investigation into Gregory Holt and his connection to the underground trafficking network unearths a chilling discovery. The evidence paints a clear picture. Holt was just one part of a much larger machine. But the worst part? Holt's involvement in Emily's disappearance is only the beginning. As the case begins to unravel, new connections emerge, connections that reveal just how far-reaching and deeply rooted the network really is. But there's one last shocking twist waiting to unfold. The network Gregory Holt was connected to might stretch farther than anyone thought. And it's not just about Emily anymore, there are more lives at stake. The investigation has only just begun to peel back the layers of this monstrous operation. Like this video if you believe everyone deserves the truth, no matter how dark it may be. Only those who care about justice will like it. As Detective Olivia James and her team delve deeper into the investigation, they follow Gregory Holt to a small, abandoned building on the outskirts of the city. The air is thick with anticipation as Holt, now clearly under intense pressure, leads them inside. There, hidden away in the shadows, is a storage unit, an innocuous-looking metal box that holds the key to unraveling the final layer of this dark conspiracy. The lock clicks open, and the contents inside send a chill through everyone present. What they find is nothing short of horrifying. Multiple sets of children's clothes, some stained, some neatly folded, and all oddly familiar. There are ID cards, personal mementos, and photographs, some of which depict smiling faces that once belonged to children who were now long gone. The walls seem to close in as the gravity of the discovery sinks in. And then one of the sets of clothes stands out. It's a small pink jacket, a jacket that Jessica Grace had last seen on Emily the day she vanished. Her breath catches in her throat. The unmistakable evidence points to one chilling truth. Emily Grace, her sweet daughter, had been a part of Gregory Holt's dark and twisted scheme. The sting of the discovery sends waves of pain through Jessica's chest, but she can't stop now. The moment of confirmation is brutal. The DNA tests on the clothes confirm what no mother wants to hear. Emily had been taken by Gregory Holt, one of many victims swept into a network so vile that it operated under everyone's nose. The realization that Emily had been part of a criminal world she could never have understood is overwhelming. For years, Jessica had been trying to piece together the puzzle, never knowing just how close she was to the heart of the horror. But the pain doesn't stop there. Jessica's mind races. She replays every moment, the unanswered calls, the missed signals, the strange coincidences. She'd never suspected anything like this was possible in her peaceful neighborhood. How could she? How could anyone? The discovery rips through Jessica like a knife. The realization that her daughter had been taken by someone she once trusted, someone she never suspected, leaves her gasping for air. The emotional weight of this new truth crashes over her. Emily, with her bright eyes and innocent heart, had been unknowingly swept into a world of darkness. A world full of secrets that had been hidden in plain sight. But now, Jessica is forced to confront the impossible, the nightmare her daughter had lived through, and the relentless need to fight for justice. Jessica had always been strong, but nothing prepares you for the kind of strength needed when you realize your world has shattered and the pieces can never be fully put back together. As Jessica reflects on everything that has happened, her mind spins. The clues she missed, the strange gut feelings she ignored, and the memories she holds of Emily. How had she not seen the signs? How had Emily been targeted so easily by people she had trusted? It's a crushing thought, knowing that a world of horrors was happening right beneath her feet. What had Emily gone through? And why had no one ever connected the dots? Jessica's mind wanders as she pictures her daughter's smile, her favorite toys, and the moments they'd shared. How could this happen to a child like Emily? But as her thoughts continue to race, a hard truth becomes clear. Jessica can't change the past. The only thing she can do now is fight for justice. She's left with nothing but memories, and the mission to ensure Emily's death won't be in vain. But the story doesn't end here, because the mastermind behind it all was still free. The investigation uncovers shocking details about the hidden world Gregory was involved in. The real mastermind is closer than they think. Just as the case begins to unfold another twist, the investigation uncovers a chilling detail. While Gregory Holt was undeniably part of the operation, he wasn't the head of the snake. The mastermind behind the entire trafficking ring is someone no one saw coming. As the detectives work tirelessly to piece together the final details, they begin to realize that the person pulling the strings has been hiding in plain sight. Could it be someone they all trusted? Or someone who had been carefully orchestrating events from the shadows? This revelation will shatter everything they thought they knew. One name stands out, a name no one ever considered. The real mastermind behind Emily Grace's kidnapping is closer than they think, and the final confrontation is about to begin. Here's something crucial I want to share with you. Being proactive can mean the difference between safety and tragedy. Talk to your children, be aware of their surroundings, and always be involved. But hold on, this is just a piece of the puzzle. Stick around for the full lesson that will show you how to protect your loved ones in ways you never thought of before. Share this with others who need to know how deep the darkness can go, because Emily deserves her story to be heard. Share it with someone who believes in justice. The investigation takes a shocking turn when Gregory Holt's ties to an underground human trafficking network are fully exposed. This isn't just a single isolated case anymore, it's a horrifying revelation that stretches far beyond what anyone ever imagined. What seemed like a random act of violence now morphs into a disturbing picture of an organized crime ring operating right beneath their feet. Gregory Holt, it turns out, wasn't the mastermind behind Emily Grace's abduction. He was just a cog in a much larger machine, a system that's been thriving in plain sight for years. With each new detail that surfaces, the web of deception becomes more entangled. Holt's role in this twisted operation was as a facilitator, a man who recruited vulnerable young women for exploitation. His clean reputation had allowed him to slip under the radar for so long. But now, his connection to this dark world is undeniable. The scale of this operation is much bigger than anyone could have imagined. It wasn't just a local issue, it spanned across states, with victims falling prey to the same cruel cycle of abuse. Women, children, and even teenagers, all taken from their lives with no one noticing, all hidden behind a veil of legitimate businesses and facades that masked the horror beneath. Jessica begins to realize just how deeply embedded this network was. And she knows, deep down, that Emily was just one of many. Her daughter's tragic fate wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a much bigger and much darker scheme. And somewhere in this tangled web of corruption, there are still more victims waiting to be rescued, more families who deserve justice. The emotional impact on Jessica is profound. The weight of knowing that Emily was part of a larger trafficking ring shakes her to her core. The betrayal of knowing how close these monsters were to her family, to Emily, stings more than anything. Yet, there's an unshakable shift within Jessica. Her grief, while consuming, pushes her to fight even harder. The case is far from over. Jessica's resolve strengthens in the face of this unimaginable horror. It's one thing to lose a child, but to learn that their life was taken by a network that had been operating under everyone's noses for years is another thing entirely. Now, it's not just about Emily. It's about stopping this operation. It's about all the other Emilys out there. It's about ensuring that what happened to her daughter doesn't happen to anyone else. She will not stop until the full scope of this network is exposed, and the people behind it are held accountable. The weight of the fight is heavy, but Jessica knows one thing for certain: the truth must come out. Justice for Emily is the only thing that matters now. Gregory Holt was just one cog in a vast operation, but the real question is, who was pulling the strings? But there's still one piece of this puzzle that remains unsolved. Gregory Holt was only one part of the system, a low-level player. But who, then, is the real mastermind behind this entire network? Who is the person who set this all in motion? As the investigation dives deeper into the network, the trail begins to lead to more powerful, more dangerous people. People who have the ability to hide in plain sight. The fear grows, not only for Jessica, but for the future victims of this operation. They are still out there, hidden in the shadows. The real mastermind is still free, still pulling the strings, manipulating the lives of countless individuals. And the detectives know they're running out of time. The clock is ticking. The truth is out there, but it's buried deep in the darkness, protected by people far more powerful than Gregory Holt. As the investigation continues to unfold, every turn leads to more questions, and every clue brings them closer to a final confrontation. The investigation is about to take a deadly turn. The real mastermind is still at large, and the most dangerous chapter is just beginning. Hit subscribe if you believe justice should never be delayed. Let's make sure every story like Emily's gets the justice it deserves. Only those who believe in true justice will subscribe. The breakthrough in the investigation had been years in the making. But now, Gregory Holt, the man responsible for Emily Grace's tragic death and part of a much larger underground operation, was finally in handcuffs. It felt like justice had come, but there was still a heavy, lingering sense that the true depth of this case hadn't been fully understood. Holt's arrest, though monumental, was only the beginning of unraveling the entire operation. The layers of corruption and deceit were more extensive than anyone could have imagined. As Gregory Holt was taken into custody, his once innocent facade shattered completely. The truth behind his years of silence, his involvement in trafficking children, was now a matter of public record. But in the wake of his arrest, more arrests followed, each one sending shockwaves through the community. Investigators began linking Holt to other crimes, some of which had been buried for years. The human trafficking network that once hid in plain sight was now exposed for all to see. But the most unsettling part wasn't just the revelation of more victims, it was the realization that Gregory Holt wasn't working alone. There were other facilitators, higher-ups in the operation, people who had yet to be captured. Some were still out there, free to continue their exploitation. Jessica Grace, who had endured 15 years of anguish and uncertainty, now found herself in the courtroom, standing in the very place where justice would finally be served for her daughter. She attended every hearing, clinging to every piece of evidence, every testimony. Gregory Holt's trial was long and grueling. It wasn't just a courtroom, it was the stage for the most intense, emotional confrontation of Jessica's life. Holt's defense team tried to cast doubt, but there was no escaping the overwhelming evidence. Victims began to come forward, their voices trembling but resolute. Their stories of fear, manipulation, and abuse, fueled Jessica's fight for justice. Each new survivor who stepped up to speak, each tear that fell in the courtroom, made Jessica's pain both more real and more distant. The scale of the operation was becoming clearer with each passing testimony. The court proceedings turned into an emotional battlefield, a fight not only for Emily but for all the victims. As the trial drew to a close, the jury deliberated for what seemed like an eternity. And when they returned with a verdict, the air in the courtroom was thick with anticipation. Gregory Holt was found guilty of first-degree murder, kidnapping, and human trafficking. Justice, at last, had come for Emily. But even as the judge handed down a sentence of life in prison, without the possibility of parole, Jessica Grace couldn't shake the weight of the years lost. Justice was served. Yes, but it couldn't bring her daughter back. Emily's absence was a hole that could never be filled, no matter how much the justice system tried to heal the wounds. For Jessica, the scars were far deeper than what could be healed by a conviction. The courtroom may have been a place of victory, but it also stood as a grim reminder of the life she would never get to share with her daughter again. She had won the battle for justice, but she lost something far more precious, her child. Gregory Holt was convicted, but the damage done to Jessica and her family can never be undone. But even as the courtroom's doors closed, the story was far from over. There was still one more twist that would leave Jessica reeling, one final revelation that no one saw coming. The mastermind behind the entire network who had orchestrated it all, pulling the strings from behind the scenes, was someone no one expected. Not the people closest to Holt. Not even the investigators who thought they had pieced it all together. The truth, it seemed, was far darker and far more complicated than anyone could have imagined. The final twist was about to unfold, and this discovery would change everything. Hit subscribe if you believe justice should never be delayed. Let's make sure every story like Emily's gets the justice it deserves. Only those who believe in true justice will subscribe. The courtroom had been silent for a long moment, and the weight of justice finally settled upon Jessica Grace's shoulders. After 15 long years, she could now feel the finality of the case. Gregory Holt, the man responsible for so much pain, would never harm another child again. But for Jessica, the road to this moment had been littered with the broken pieces of a life she could never reclaim. The emotions were overwhelming. Emily's death had torn apart everything Jessica had held dear. It had shattered her family, robbed her of a future with her daughter, and left her with an empty space in her heart that no amount of justice could fill. But now, at least, there was a sense of closure. She could finally lay her daughter to rest. The funeral was a somber affair. The community, once shaken by Emily Grace's disappearance, now gathered to honor her memory. Jessica stood over her daughter's grave, tears falling freely. But they were no longer just tears of grief, they were tears of release. She had fought for this day, for Emily, and now the fight was over. But the emotional toll would never truly disappear. Jessica's grief would stay with her, woven into every part of her life. Still, Emily's story would live on. It would serve as a powerful reminder, not just for Jessica, but for the entire community. A reminder that justice was possible, even in the darkest of circumstances, and that no one should ever give up on finding the truth. But while Jessica could finally rest, Emily's story was about to do something bigger, something that would have a profound impact beyond just this case. Justice had been served, but now, the lesson to be learned from Emily's case would become the heart of a new movement. Emily's death, tragic as it was not in vain. Through her story, Jessica had not only brought justice to her daughter, but had also inspired countless others who had lost loved ones or who lived in fear of the same tragedy. Her case sparked a wider conversation about the importance of community vigilance, the dangers of organized crime, and how to protect the vulnerable from becoming prey in a society that so often overlooks them. Emily's memory, though she was gone, would always live on. Her image, her story, would continue to be shared, spreading awareness to prevent others from meeting the same grim fate. The silence that had filled the community in the wake of her disappearance was replaced with a resolve to be better, to protect those who couldn't protect themselves, to listen when others cried for help, and to ensure that no other child, no other mother, would endure the same agony. For Jessica, the burden of loss was still heavy, but there was now a sense of purpose, a mission to ensure that Emily's name would never be forgotten. As Jessica stood before her daughter's grave one last time, she promised that her fight would continue, even after the case had been closed. The justice that had been served was just one part of the larger legacy Emily had left behind. And it was in that very promise that the most important lesson of all would be revealed. Emily's case was more than just a cold case solved. It became a beacon of hope for other families still searching for answers. Jessica stood up from the grave, her heart heavy but determined. As she walked away from the burial site, the weight of her loss still raw, she knew that her work wasn't finished. There were still others out there, other families, other children, other victims who needed someone to speak for them. Her voice, fueled by her love for Emily, would never be silenced. The truth had won, but the fight to keep others safe had just begun. By now, you've seen how deeply this story affected a family and a community, and the steps that ultimately led to justice for Emily. But it's not just about one case, it's about keeping your family safe in a world that can sometimes feel unpredictable. Now, let me break down the key lessons we can all learn from this, starting with the 5 crucial steps that could help you prevent something similar from happening to someone you love. Lesson number 5. Trust your instincts. One of the biggest takeaways from this story is the importance of listening to your gut. From the very beginning, Jessica Grace had a feeling that something wasn't right. Even when police dismissed certain clues, her instincts kept her pushing for answers. In your own life, if something feels off, even if it's a small detail, it's crucial to speak up. Trust your instincts. If you feel uncomfortable in a situation, don't ignore it. Children may not always know how to express themselves, so it's your job to be the protective layer, the one who notices when something is wrong. If you sense that something's not right with a friend, family member, or neighbor, don't hesitate to act. Lesson number 4. Stay connected with your children. Children are naturally curious and eager to explore the world, but they may not always be aware of the dangers that surround them. One of the best ways to protect them is to stay connected. Regularly check in with them, not just about school or homework, but about their experiences, the people they interact with, and their daily routines. Establishing an open line of communication allows children to feel safe sharing their concerns with you. It builds trust, and they'll be more likely to come to you when something feels wrong. Lesson number 3. Use technology wisely. One lesson we learned from Emily's case is how much technology can play a role in keeping children safe. From mobile phones to GPS tracking, today's tech can give parents peace of mind by helping them keep tabs on their children's whereabouts. But remember, this is a double-edged sword. It's important to monitor their online activity without invading their privacy. Use technology responsibly and in moderation. Set parental controls, teach children about online safety, and always be aware of who they're talking to online. Lesson number 2. Teach your children about boundaries. Empower your children by teaching them about personal boundaries, both physical and emotional. They should know that it's okay to say no if they feel uncomfortable in any situation, whether it's with a stranger or someone they know. Make sure they understand the importance of being cautious around unfamiliar adults. Explain how to identify safe adults they can turn to if they ever feel unsafe, and teach them that it's never wrong to ask for help. Lesson number 1. Never stop advocating for your loved ones. If there's one thing Jessica Grace proved, it's that persistence is key when it comes to protecting your family. In the face of overwhelming grief and frustration, she never stopped fighting for Emily's justice. Even when the case grew cold, she used social media, rallied the community, and never gave up on the possibility of finding the truth. Your advocacy for your children doesn't end with the basics of safety. It means fighting for them even when things seem hopeless. It means being their voice in the face of adversity. You're their biggest protector, and you must keep pushing for answers, whether it's for justice or for their safety. The lessons from Emily's case are not just to be observed, they're to be acted upon. The best way to protect your loved ones is by staying aware, staying connected, and never hesitating to act. Don't let tragedy strike before you take the necessary steps to keep your family safe.